One day, Leah was at school. Instead of paying attention to the class, she entertained herself by drawing the crystal tower and Princess Eritreya at the top of the tower. Absorbed as she was, the teacher asked her a question about the essay he had ordered the students to write the day before. This essay was supposed to describe the profession they would like to pursue when they grew up and the reasons for choosing that job. Instead, the girl Leah had written a story about the world of Eritreya. It was as if Leah was the creator of that world, and she captured it all on paper. There, she talked about the Tyranids, the great planet that orbited around them, the city of Luminia, Princess Eritreya, and the peoples of her world. The teacher was certainly surprised by Leah's imagination and the clarity of the story. However, he scolded Leah for not having turned in the assigned task. When Leah began to read her story aloud, all the children in the class began to laugh. They shouted at her that she was too fanciful, crazy, or lunatic. The teacher silenced all the children for their rudeness, and Leah was ashamed and bowed her head. At the end of the class, a terrible incident occurred. When the teacher had already left, and while Leah was gathering her things, a group of misbehaving children approached Leah. They started telling her that her story was stupid, that Princess Eritreya didn't exist, and that Leah was out of her mind. The bad children grabbed Leah's drawing, and she clung to it. In a struggle with the children, the drawing of the princess ended up tearing. The children pushed Leah to the ground and trampled on the drawing. Leah was left crying inconsolably. When she had the strength to move on, she picked up the pieces of the drawing, put them in her backpack, and went home. Upon arriving home, her father asked if she was okay, but Leah just locked herself in her room. She tried to piece together the broken drawing. Leah opened a drawer where there were hundreds of drawings and stories. One could write a tale of hours and hours about the world of the Tyranids through Leah's creations. For a long time, the girl had dedicated herself to imagining and capturing this world in drawings and stories. Leah dreamed of her own creations, but the dreams seemed so real that she felt them. Leah felt that her fantasy world was alive, that it existed somewhere, and that now something terrible was about to happen on the princess's planet. Hours passed, and Leah's father called to her room furiously. The teacher had called him to explain that the girl's academic performance had declined, that Leah was not doing her homework, that she was entertaining herself by drawing and writing about fantastic worlds. Her father warned her to focus on her studies, but Leah seemed not to listen. Then, a strong argument took place between father and daughter. "Your teacher called me, Leah. This cannot continue," exclaimed her father. "Dad, you don't understand, I must help the princess. Her kingdom is going to be destroyed. Leah, Princess Eritreya does not exist. Those stars you draw do not exist. There are no magical cities or wars in fantastic kingdoms. Get your feet on the ground." Leah's father shouted. "Dad, please. We have to find a way to help her. Leah, focus on school and listen to what they tell you. You have to learn to separate tales from real life. Daughter, I don't want to go back to school. The children treat me badly. I'm fed up. I will never be like them." Leah refused to return to school. Her father, who could no longer cope with his daughter's strange behaviors, forcibly took all the papers with the drawings and stories. "You will not speak of these kingdoms and characters again," exclaimed her father. "Dad, please, they are in danger. Do not fade my only illusion. I will burn all this. It's for your own good." "No," Leah screamed. "From now on, you will focus on school and carve out a good future. You will thank me for this. Someday, when you have a profitable profession and have learned to live in the real world, then, you can create fantasy stories again," were the last words of her father, who closed the door of the room and took all of Leah's drawings. Leah cried lying on her bed for hours until, after a while, she fell asleep. This time she dreamed again, but her dream was not like before. The girl saw the city of Luminia in flames. The Luminians screamed frightened and moved from one side to the other. And nothing was able to stop the vast fire, which even melted those buildings that seemed to be made of glass. The nightmare was so real that Leah felt a terrible fear that invaded her very insides. Then, she saw how the flames advanced and climbed up to the tower of Princess Eritreya, who with eyes of fear and a desperate scream, asked for help from the heavens. Leah woke up with a shock, and she knew that her father had set fire to her creations. And with that, the stars of the Tyranids, the Kingdom of Luminia, and the beings she had created with so much zeal and love died. Without her tales and her characters, the story ended. With tears in her eyes, Leah's heart broke into the thousands of pieces that made up her stories. And then, she knew that everything was over. But it happened that, from a distant void, she could hear a voice saying, "Leah, I'm here." The princess had returned.